I'm Jeff Zarnett, and this is Software Career Growth. Today we're going to talk about one of the subjects that's very difficult for a new manager, and that is, how do I know if I'm doing a good job? Today's topic is about being a new manager, and truth be told, it is much harder to evaluate how you're doing at the end of the week as a manager as compared to when you're an individual contributor. If you've just made the switch and become a manager, it can certainly feel like on Friday when you end your day, I'm not sure what I accomplished this week, because what you're comparing against was, as an individual contributor, you could look and see, all right, I completed this many pull requests, this many tickets, answered this, did that, and you feel like you have a lot more accomplishments to your name. Whereas a manager, at the end of the week, you say, well, I went to this meeting, I talked to this, I had this conversation, I had a whole bunch of one-on-ones with people, I did this, I did that, but at the end of the day, what do I have to show for it? And even though your team may have completed something, launched something, it's easy to tell yourself a story of, well, I didn't really do any of that, it was the people in my team. And you can be left asking yourself, so what is it you do here? I want to say that it's harder but not impossible to understand how you have an impact as a manager, but it does move things into a realm where it's a little bit less measurable, right? I can look at the number of pull requests completed, I can look at the number of tickets, if you use story points, you can count up how many story points you completed, but as a manager, like, did my meeting today help people? Hopefully. We'll see. So, you can, as a manager, of course, still write some code. I would encourage it. I think actually it's a good idea because it keeps you involved in what's going on, and when people come to you to talk about a decision or to get your input on something, then you understand the problem a lot better when you're actually involved in it and it's not just an abstract thing. Whether we should actually talk about that in this video, I've thought about, and I think it will save it for a separate video, this idea of, can you manage effectively even if you're not an expert in the code base? But for now, we'll imagine, you could still code if you wanted to. You do still have to choose carefully the tasks that you want to do. You don't want to choose things that block other people if they're not finished, or something that takes unknown time. So I would usually be reluctant to pick up a bug ticket where I don't know how long it's going to take because I'm not sure what the cause is, and I have to do an analysis and I have to try to figure out what's going on and then make a decision about how to fix it. Those kinds of things take an unknown amount of time, and I might not be able to finish it before I have to switch to something else, whereas I would much prefer to take a ticket where I know this is how long it's going to take. And either I choose it because it's unblocking somebody else if I do this immediately, or it's something that I can work on at my own pace, and if I'm not finished in time, then you know what, it's okay. I can always come back to it later on, and no one is stuck waiting for it. But what I would actually suggest is that there's such a thing as too much of writing your own code as a manager. Roles are different in different companies, and expectations for how much time you spend actually writing stuff will, of course, vary. However, it's easy to fall into this trap of, well, I'm good at writing code and I would like to focus on that and ignore other responsibilities, because you get a feeling of accomplishment, you get a feeling of, I know what I'm doing, and I know how to do this, and I know at the end of the week what I have actually done. With that said, I have a few questions. There are 6 questions that I'm going to propose as ways to evaluate yourself at the end of a week or a month or a year, and this will help you to decide, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I being successful as an engineering manager? So my first question is, are my team members happy, engaged, and growing or learning? This series is Software Career Growth, so obviously I'm going to talk about career growth and engagement and learning, and I really think that is an important responsibility of a manager. And in particular, I think it's something that needs improvement overall in the industry, that not enough effort goes into the idea of building the skills and building the knowledge of people, and it is challenging to encourage that across the whole industry, but you're here, so thank you for watching, and I hope that you will actually take this advice. But ask yourself this question, like, are the people that I'm working with happy? There are things that are within your control and things that are not, right? If people are unhappy because of things that are outside of your team, company related something, maybe there are layoffs and morale is really low, You can't necessarily solve that. You can, however, be part of the solution, and you want to make sure that people feel safe and comfortable and happy being in your team. And similarly, engagement, getting people engaged is also something that you have some control over. I say some, there will be people who have completely checked out, they've decided they're leaving and they don't care anymore, but you can do something for people who are not quite that far along in the I'm leaving track. But making sure they're engaged. Are you giving them tasks to do that are to their interest, that help them grow, that are new, interesting, different? Those sorts of things you have some control over. And growth and learning, you're watching this series, so I hope you take it as seriously as I do. And you should always have something that you're working on with your team members, where it's helping them to get to their goal, whether that's to be a more senior individual contributor or to be a manager themselves one day. Question 2, are we shipping the things that are important? Now, some of this is not just on management, and some of it's also product management, so you'll have to talk with your product manager about this. But if the team is delivering the things that are aligned with the goals, so we are supposed to be shipping these features, we're supposed to be delivering these bug fixes, if those things are actually happening, if they're going out the door, then good. That's what we want. The delivery part is an important part of being an engineering manager. And if we are, in fact, meeting our goals, if we are going through the priorities in the right order, excellent. So we should be comfortable with that. Related is question 3. Are the things that we're shipping of good quality? Quality in software is, of course, hard to evaluate, but one indication that you have a quality problem is major issues. So we're shipping it and there's lots of bugs, and or at least lots of severe bugs, or even a few critical ones. So if we are having a lot of those, then that's something we need to improve on, because we're just not shipping code that is sufficiently tested or is a good match to the situation where it's going to be deployed. And you can also measure that with incidents. Whenever there's an incident, that is an indication that something has gone wrong. Incident response could be its own series within software career growth, and I have lots to say about that. But if the code that we're shipping is causing incidents on a fairly regular basis, that indicates something is wrong. So what we're shipping is not of good enough quality, or our testing procedures and what have you are not adequate to the task. But you will also find out if things you're shipping are good quality based on feedback from other teams. If they are frustrated because the API that you have delivered is hard to use, you will hear it from them, and you'll know that's something that you need to improve on. And if you're shipping the important things in good quality, you can be pretty sure that you have the delivery part of it under control. Number 4. Do the stakeholders outside the team understand and agree with our priorities, and are they comfortable with our work and progress? Again, this also has overlap with the role of the product manager, trying to figure out what are the priorities and sharing that with stakeholders outside the team. But as a manager, you want to be able to show what's going on and how is progress. We have completed 3 out of 10 items that correspond to this project, so things are on track, ahead of schedule, behind schedule, that sort of thing. It's important that we be proactive and communicate that as managers to external stakeholders, otherwise they don't really know what's going on. It is easy to sort of overestimate the level of technical understanding that people who are not in engineering have, and so you can show them, just take a look at the ticket board, and the tickets mean nothing to them because they don't really understand the technical aspect of it. All they know is line goes up or line doesn't change, or number of items in the column has increased instead of decreased. That isn't necessarily as meaningful to them as it is to you. With that said, you want to make sure that stakeholders are on side, and you will have stakeholders who are unreasonable. They always want more, faster, cheaper, better, and ultimately there is a limit to how much can be delivered in a certain period of time, and quality has to be maintained, and so they may never be truly completely satisfied with our work in progress. But then it's managers' responsibility to convince the stakeholders that we are doing our best work and we are getting through the things that need to be done on a reasonable time frame, even if an unreasonable time frame has been supplied. Question 5. Are we staying on top of chores, technical debt, and other unglamorous things that need doing? Software is full of technical debts and unglamorous things, improving test coverage, upgrading a library, replacing something that's deprecated with a new version. Those things are not very glamorous. They're not very exciting. It is unlikely that you are going to have a big demo to the whole company, launching the switch from library version 2 to library version 3, because it runs under the surface, and the salespeople probably can't sell it, and marketing doesn't know what to do with it. And even sort of in senior management, there may be questions about, well, why aren't we launching this new feature? Because our competitor has that feature, so what's going on? But it is still important as an engineering manager to speak for the technical debt and for the chores that need doing. And this is an important part of the role, and making sure that enough of that gets done so that we stay on top of things is helpful. Again, I could probably make a whole other video about how do you convince managers to take technical debt seriously, or senior managers especially, to take technical debt seriously in your organization. But we do recognize it is a trade-off, right? There will be times when we have to do things quickly. There's a regulatory change, and we absolutely must launch this new version by this date, and it doesn't matter if we accumulate some technical debt getting there. But as a manager, your goal is to keep it under control. You're never going to solve all of it. There could always be improvements to be made, but you don't want to let it get out of control either. And the last question is more stretch goal territory, bonus, but it's the kind of thing that you would like to do as much of as you can when you can. And that is, are we doing things that make the engineering department as a whole better? And for that, I mean, are we participating in initiatives that are engineering-wide? Like we want to migrate away from framework A to framework B. Are we doing our part? Are we contributing towards that? Do we work on common components? Do we maintain them? Do we make sure that they are kept up to date, that they are improved? Do we write any common components that others could make use of? All of those things fall under the idea of good citizenship in engineering, as I would call it. And you want your team to be good citizens of engineering. Everyone is benefiting from, say, common components that are reused across your infrastructure, and be part of the team that makes those and maintains them, because that's just sort of the right thing to do. It helps other people, it increases our impact as a team, and it makes engineering as a whole a better experience, right? We don't want a tragedy of the commons kind of situation where nobody wants to work on common components, because then ultimately we are all worse off for it. So those are my 6 questions, and I recognize that sometimes the answers to these things are going to be no, and that's okay. We can't always get a perfect score in every category every week or every month, but they are just intended as guidelines for these are the things that I should be thinking about, and the circumstances that you're in will dictate where you put your focus right now. However, I don't want to let any of those things fall too far behind. As I say, we might have to ignore technical debt temporarily because we really need to make a deadline, we really need to ship something quickly, or we really need to address a serious quality problem, in which case we might have to put some other things on the back burner. But nevertheless, as a whole, as an aggregate, we should be looking at all of these things over the long term and making sure that we don't get too far behind on any of them. And if you can honestly say yes to every one of those questions, I think things are going pretty well. And I hope that your manager and senior management sees it the same way. So those are my 6 questions for how do I know if I'm doing a good job as a new manager. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.